how Ukrainian drones breached the 4,000-kilometer to hit Russian bombers. The Ukrainian drones struck multiple air bases deep inside Russian territory as part of a covert operation codenamed Spiderweb, damaging or destroying over 40 Russian military aircraft. Now, the long-range attacks, some reaching over 4,000-kilometer viewers, targeted strategic bombers and early warning aircraft at facilities in Irkutsk, Murmansk, and in fact, Ivanovo, Ryazan and Amur regions. Now, the campaign there, reportedly carried out by Ukraine's security service, involved smuggling first-person view drones into Russia using civilian trucks and launching them from just outside airbase perimeters. The SBU's strategy relied on the element of surprise, low-cost material and precise engineering. The drones, small, cheap and often commercially available quadcopters, were reportedly launched just outside the perimeters of the targeted airfields after being concealed in plain sight. At the heart of the operation, viewers, was a combination of logistical ingenuity and strategic patience. Trucks carrying the drones drove thousands of kilometers undetected, parking near Russian air bases, including Belaya in Irkutsk Oblast, Olenya in Murmansk, Ivanovo and Diaghilev near Ryazan. Now, these sites house some of Russia's most advanced aircraft, including the Tu-95 and Tu-22M3 strategic bombers and A-50 airborne early warning systems. Now, the drones were launched just meters from these bombers, maximizing the probability of a direct hit. Let me quickly go back to Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, defense and strategy expert. Sir, you heard it. Operation Spiderweb, drones smuggled in trucks launched just outside Russian air bases. The question is, how was Ukraine really able to pull off something so audacious, and so deep inside enemy territory? Does this, Lieutenant General, does this strike change the deterrence equation? The question is, has Ukraine really shown it can hold Russia's most secure assets hostage even on its own soil, on Russian soil?
Absolutely, they are spectacular, audacious, and never ever underestimate your enemy. They can come back again and again because they have nothing now to lose. Probably the Ukrainians must have thought, what more can they ever do? They've already lost lakhs and lakhs of people. They've had 50% of the population go and migrate to other countries. What are they left with? Nothing. But to be able to fight and stand up against the Russians. And I'm sure the Russians also were fully prepared. But this kind of a Russian spectacular raid, bringing in the drones in trucks, rooftop, remotely operated, nobody knew that these drones were hidden on the rooftop. And no, I'm sure the way they would have moved in, how the HQ unit of theirs were coordinating it, how they were, complete reconnaissance, keeping the entire area under vigilance, and then being able to launch it just a day prior to the talks that were to take place today is indicated that, of course, what you rightly said, patience, strategic patience, and be able to convey to their siblings that they are capable. And of course, the Russians know they also do not underestimate the Ukrainians. They know the capabilities of the Ukrainians. But notwithstanding all that, and obviously, the Ukrainians have a support of over 20 countries to themselves. It is not that the Ukraine is fighting alone against Russia. Though Russia may have just the support of one or two countries, but Russians are entirely on their own. But this audacious, spectacular raid, pumping in their trucks so deep inside, commercial trucks, rooftop, these commercial drones, then being able to remotely operate, destroy all the super bombers, something that the world hasn't ever seen. And I think they just have about 120 of them, and of which 41 destroyed. That's a huge number to lose. And some absolutely strategic bombers carrying cruise missiles. And all of these were the aircraft being used by Russia to destroy Ukraine so far in the last 3 years. So I personally would, at least in this particular thing, grant Ukraine their strategic patience, their ability to deter, their ability to be able to get inside, have their people inside, and then being able to operate so smoothly and destroy, caught unawares on Sunday. is something that the Russians would have to really rethink as to what really went wrong. And the Ukrainians can definitely be able to, and rightly so, the way Zelensky come up saying and thanking his SBU director that yes, that together of them, they had been planning for 18 months, a great success. And again and again, I say, I sincerely hope the war comes to an end. The Ukrainians have proved their point. The Russians have understood the strength of Ukraine, and neither of the sides can go beyond this. It's so much better that they must now end, come to a negotiating table and have a ceasefire, and then see to it later what best can be done. Yeah.
Right. Continue to stay with us, sir. Let me also take this quick update. Well, Ukraine destroyed almost 41 aircraft, mostly strategic bombers of the Russian Air Force. The losses are estimated to be $7 billion. Now, these are the aircraft that were destroyed by the Ukrainian drones. Right on your screens, the drones destroyed A-50s. A-50 is an airborne early warning and control aircraft. A-15 man crew derived data from the large Liena surveillance radar of the aircraft. A-50 can handle up to 10 fighters and it can fly for 4 hours with a range of 1,000 kilometers. Russia lost a number of Tu-95 aircraft. Tu-95 is a 4-engine turboprop-powered strategic bomber. It is a missile platform and also used for maritime patrol. It entered service with the Soviet Air Force. That's not it. Russia also lost Tu-22M3. Now, Tu-22M3 is a supersonic strike bomber. It is also a missile carrier. Tu-22M3 are mostly armed with Kh-15 and Kh-22 missiles. Lieutenant General, I want to understand from you, sir, Ukraine claims that it has hit 35% of Russia's long-range bomber fleet. How big a blow is this for Russia's military edge? Before we go and, discuss about this particular development, I want to understand this from you.
Huge thing, because they have just about 120 of these strategic bombers. As you rightly said, the Tu-95, Tu-22, then that Tu-160, then A-50. All of these were platforms which the Russians don't manufacture at all. And each one of these platforms carry almost 16, some of them 12, some of them even 24 of these cruise missiles with ranges, as you rightly said, over 1,000 kilometers. And hence, obviously, if you lose 40 of these aircraft, you lose 40 of these which are tracking these missiles, it's a huge big loss. For 34%, if the Ukrainians are claiming, and rightly so, 41 of the aircraft and their platforms destroyed is a huge, big loss to the Russians. And I'm sure because you can't manufacture these aircraft anymore, they aren't manufacturing them anymore. So there's no question of the maintenance is a huge this thing. So it's something which the Russians would have to really think now. It would be much better that we go in for talks, and I think probably the Ukrainians timed it in a fashion that the Russians come in for a talk, and that they must not be seen as Russians negotiating with Ukrainians from a grandstand position. So they thought that let's at least sit as equals on the table, and that's what Zelensky is demanding, that Mr. Putin must come on the table. And obviously, so far, Russians have had a greater victory all by themselves, fighting it out. And though Russians have also lost a huge amount of equipment and manpower, notwithstanding all that, but the 20% of the most fertile land, most productive land, most mineral-rich land in occupation of the Russians, which the Russians are not likely to give it. And therefore, but as you rightly said, they are 34%. That's a huge capability of anyone, 1/3 God. And in just a few hours, what does that show? And you can't, capacity building takes time. And it's not easy to build up these capabilities, especially on these aircraft which have strategic deterrence capability. The world knew what the Russians had. Going so deep in 4,000 kilometers along the Siberian border, knocking them off, I think it's something which I'm yet to reach such kind of a daring operation, being able to do when the two countries are at war for over 3 years, even though they may be siblings, but they are at war for the last 3 years, and still being able to push in your trucks, push in these little drones, operate them remotely, keep your people over there, see how the aircraft are all on the tarmac, and then destroying each one of them I think it's something which we will have to actually study. So much of it in the military history that what is it that makes even people push back to the wall, and despite that they spring back and then be able to tell. And therefore, one thing very clear: never ever underestimate your enemy. They can spring back, and that is what is very very important.